Let's go back to the NFL. Good news for Chicago, who saw receiver Luther Burden return to the Bears practice field for the first time since injuring his groin 3 weeks ago. Burden only participated in individual drills, but is on track to be available for the Bears opener against the Panthers. Harry Douglas, Chicago. Do they have enough firepower to repeat as NFC North champs?
They do, but only if these wide receivers can be consistent. You got to remember, DJ Moore is no longer there. He's with the Buffalo Bills. So when I look at a guy in Rome Odunze, who they drafted 9th overall the same year they took Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, are you going to be consistent? Are you going to be that contested catch, that guy downfield that can make those home run hitter plays? Luther Burden III, I love the way he came on towards the later year in 2025. But Romo Odunze, I think, is so key to this offense, really unlocking. And if those guys can be consistent, and I believe Colston Loveland's going to have a bigger role on this football team as well. Caleb Williams could have an MVP type season if those guys are consistent, in my opinion. If you have 2 of the 3 that I just mentioned, those guys going over 1,000 yards, we will be talking about Caleb Williams being the first 4,000-yard passer in in the Chicago Bears history, but also in the MVP conversation.
Still amazing that hasn't happened. Dante Winter, you've been a part of some really good football teams. You've been a part of some teams that have struggled. The Bears are coming off a really good start to the Ben Johnson era. How do they avoid taking a step back?
Well, they have to stay on schedule on the offensive side of the ball. Caleb Williams has to understand the rhythm to the offense. He has to get the football out. He has to sometimes take the 5-yard check down. He has to give these young receivers confidence. Last year, Caleb was unbelievable late in games. But you don't want your offense to have to rely on your quarterback to make a spectacular play to win those games. And then last year, something that's going to be hard to replicate is they didn't turn the ball over much. They took the ball away, and they were able to run the football. And I don't know if you can do that consistently year in and year out. So that's what they're going to have to do so that they don't regress.
Number 1 in takeaways, number 1 in turnover differential last season. That defense, there are some question marks. Good enough to win the NFC?
No. Last year, they outscored their opponents by 73 points off turnovers. If you take that away, they were minus 47. Yeah. So a massive advantage in that. Not good enough to win the NFC unless Ozzie Trapillo at left tackle, healthy and continues, because he played well last year when he got onto the field. I agree with those wide receivers. I mean, if we're just looking at the NFC, it's not all that different than the Baltimore conversation, but I don't want to be repetitive. But if you just look at the NFC, they would fall behind Minnesota. They'd fall behind the Rams. They would fall behind Dallas. They would fall behind Detroit. They would fall behind Seattle. Just in the conversation of wide receivers, indifferent to some other teams. They would fall behind if Mike Evans is healthy, I would say San Francisco. So Loveland, total stud. Those receivers are talented, but they're just unproven. When they're on the field, they've had moments. And so everyone's like, let's go break scoring records. Let's go be the best offense in football. Let's have Caleb Williams win MVP. He ain't gonna do it himself.
If they pop, though, let's not say they're all pro receivers, but what does it become if these two step up big this season?
Yeah, I think this becomes an offense that is top 5, top 7 in the NFL. I think Caleb Williams takes another step and might get into that MVP conversation. But is that defense going to be good enough if they're not just getting the ball given to them at times? And this is a secondary that lost really important players. So the scoring record's going to have to be in flirt with if that defense doesn't get the takeaways they did last year.
I don't believe they're going to be able to get the takeaways they got in 2000.
It's just unlikely, right?
Year after year.
4 guys that had 15 interceptions of the 23 that they had are no longer on this roster, on top of the guy that you brought over from a safety perspective. He's hurting. He's going to be out. A guy that you were counting on in Bryant. So I don't believe you can just sit there and rely on getting takeaways like you did in 2025. So, yes, it's going to force Caleb Williams. I have to be that much better on offense. I have to be consistent from start to finish. And those wide receivers, we're putting a lot of pressure on them, but just like the pressure we're putting on them, I'm pretty sure their head coach, Ben Johnson, is doing the same thing because he understands if those guys are unlocked to another dimension where this offense can go.
If you're not turning the ball over as much, or I should say forcing as many takeaways, how do you compensate as a defense? What can you do to try to make up for that?
Well, you're going to have to play great run defense. You're going to have to keep teams out of the red zone. You're going to have to force teams to punt backed up in their own area. And another thing with Caleb is he's very creative. Creativity is one of his natural attributes. But you need him to sometimes feel like he doesn't need that creativity. He just needs to take the boring thing, the boring play, and not hold on to the football so long. Sometimes it's a 5-yard pass, and he's running around back there for 10, 15 seconds trying to make a spectacular play. That won't help either.
One of the most fascinating teams to watch this season, no doubt. Let's go over to golf.
Definitely better catch. It's not an ideal throw. It's certainly behind Matthew Golden. There's 2 defenders there. But this is a great sign for Green Bay. Their first-round pick of last year. He's got to be a person, because of the loss of Romeo Doubs, that absolutely steps forward. So that's a better catch. I'm going catch for that.
Golden, the little sleeper potential in fantasy, like this could be the guy that unlocks the offense?
Yeah, this has been a crowded wide receiver room over the last few years. Now, you got rid of Dontavian Wicks. He's now in Philadelphia. Romeo Doubs is now with the New England Patriots. So the room is less crowded. I'm looking forward to Matthew Golden actually being that number 1 wide receiver, but here's the catcher. They need that receiver room and pass catchers to remain healthy. The 4 guys who are starting right now, from the 3 receivers and tight ends, Tucker Kraft missed 9 games last year. Christian Watson missed 7. Matthew Golden missed 3, and Jayden Reed missed 10. And everyone wants to talk about Jordan Love. How about those pass catchers remain healthy and also catch the football consistently? And I believe Green Bay will be better as well.
That's one issue. Here's another. GM Brian Gutekunst addressed a possible suspension yesterday for running back Josh Jacobs, who was arrested in May on domestic abuse charges. Take a listen.
I'm pretty confident we can sustain it. That doesn't mean we wouldn't do that, yeah, we'll deal with that when that comes. But we've obviously been, preparing for that in case that happens. But at the same time, I feel really good about the guys we got in that room, and I think we could survive that.
Shefty, what's the latest on this situation right here?
The fact that the Packers are talking about it and acknowledging it tells you that they're bracing for something to come. And I don't think we've heard the last in this. We're waiting to see if there are charges brought against Josh Jacobs for the domestic abuse allegations from the incident in May in his house. And if there are charges that are brought against him, what are those charges? And once there are charges, then the NFL looks into the situation. So you guys were talking about the wide receiver questions. There's also a looming running back question, a legal question that hangs over this team and obviously will have a big influence on how this season works out for Green Bay.
No doubt. Keep it locked here on ESPN. Anything that develops with that story, we will have the latest immediately. Back to the action on the field. We are 2 weeks away from the 49ers and the Rams in Australia, and we continue to be on Aaron Donald watch. Adam Schefter, where does this situation currently stand?
The Los Angeles Rams open the season 2 weeks from tonight. They're still waiting for an answer from Aaron Donald, who has worked out at their facility a couple of times where the team has put him on the transaction wire as having put on the team equipment and worked out. He still has not finalized his decision. The two sides still have to figure out a contract because right now he would count $30 million, which the Rams don't have the salary cap space to accommodate. So there are steps that have to take place before he can come back, if he decides to come back. The point is, with their season opening 2 weeks from tonight in Australia against the 49ers, Aaron Donald right now would seem to be on the clock. And I would think that we would have to get some sort of answer from him here sooner rather than later. There have been various people saying, oh, the answer could come earlier this summer, this weekend, the next week. Here we are, 2 weeks from the opener, and we are now at the time where you would think that conversations have to occur for both sides to figure out how they're going to proceed.
How do you evaluate this Rams team without Donald, and then how high can they go with Donald?
Well, when I evaluate this Rams team, I hear so much about people saying that the San Francisco 49ers are so old. Well, why isn't that the story for the LA Rams? Look at their star players. Look at Matthew Stafford. Look at Devontae Adams. Look at the defensive end they just got from Cleveland, Myles Garrett. If you bring Aaron Donald out of retirement, he's 35. He'll be 36 years old. So why aren't the narrative around the LA Rams that they're old? These guys have dealt with injuries as well. Matthew Stafford dealt with a back injury. Devontae Adams, he dealt with hamstring injuries. So I think that when you start to look at this team, you have to taper your expectations because at any moment they could deal with these injuries and Father Time could catch up.
So I'll say the reason why I think the Rams have been giving more grace than the San Francisco 49ers, they've been able to close the deal from a Super Bowl championship perspective. So that's why they probably get a little bit more grace than normal. And then when you have a guy like Matthew Stafford who came into the league a long time ago, but had a back injury last year, and a lot of people thought that was going to hamper him, and he goes out and wins the MVP. That also gives you a little bit more grace as an organization.
Have you ever hurt your back?
Yes.
You know how that can just creep up on you, right?
It's a bad feeling.
Absolutely. So
a bad feeling.
I think that we should
Ask
taper the
LeBron.
expectations for those LA Rams right now.
If everybody's healthy this year, the Rams win the Super Bowl.
And I feel the same for the San Francisco 49ers. If everybody's healthy, the 49ers win the Super Bowl.
49ers.
How about that?
Absolutely. Christian
Coming from
McCaffrey,
49ers,
Mike
you gotta love it.
Evans, Brock Purdy, the
Really
defense,
good.
and Bosa.
Really good team.
I believe that they
that could
could
be a
win
big
it.
boost at the wide
Absolutely.
receiver position. All right, coming up, the final rehearsal.